Wong the Wonderful fills the stage with more pyrotechnics than an American funeral. This Big Trouble in Little China reference can cause your opponent a lot of trouble with his unique marker, Pyrotechnic. This marker gives you a little mini game as you try to juggle the suit of the last card in your discard at the end of the turn. This effect can cause a lot of simple duels for all models with Boom, or put Glowy out, his special token that is mostly used by actions like Finale. Finale lets you discard up to 3 Glowy off of any model to cause the damage of Finale to increase to 5. You hit your crit strike trigger and it goes up to 6. Combine this with his crew card, which gives all Whizbang models fast cast. This action economy boon adds value to every model in the keyword, because those minions that were just going to go to a location and score points can often get spells off in the process. All of the Whizbang models can use pick a card to spend a stone and maybe get some benefit, but Wong will often keep himself alive by using Exit Stage to drop a Pyrotechnic and then poof away. This can make the crew a bit stone thirsty, so Wong has his 3 demon bag that he can toss enemy souls in to get stones off of enemy kills. This master is packed full of little synergies and minigames that makes this crew very fun and very value. Welcome to the Playbook, where I bridge the gap between reading the cards and diving deep in the tactical depth of Malifaux 4th Edition. I feel like one of the big playbook decisions you must plan with Wong is where the pyrotechnic markers are going to go. For some lists and plays, you really want the pyro markers on your own models. Glowy goes away in the end phase, and models like Bokur and Swinecurse really need Glowy to stay alive. So you really want pyro markers around these models, as you really want a mask on that last card to refresh Glowy. Now, markers that are gained in the end phase don't go away, so there's a little quick rules check for you. But so for this first play, we're going to be focusing on the opposite of that, and we're going to be getting markers on the enemy table half. We're going to trigger Boom, and we're going to score Reshape the Land. So my list starts with Wong the Wonderful. We're going to have Olivia Bernard, a somewhat mediocre totem, but can sometimes have a big impact with her lovely assistant aura, boosting the defense and willpower of all models with Glowy. Alphonse LeBlanc, auto take for me. He gets 3 actions while he has Glowy on him. He can toss Wong, and he has a Warning Growl aura, and he also has a built-in plus flip on his melee. The Pigapult, a ruthless gun that can throw minions into targets to add a point of damage, and do 1 damage to the friendly model, which can trigger many effects across the crew. 3 Bokurs. These jack-of-all-trade models are great. They can leap for a 7, they have plus flips on their cast, they can make pyrotechnic markers, and are pretty good at getting thrown by the Pigapult. 3 Lightning Bugs. These little support models can trigger the pyrotechnic markers before the end phase. And the Lucky Fate Effigy. This guy gains the Whizbang keyword, so now he can use Fast Cast to walk, charge, and cast his spell. Spend 2 stones and convert into the Emissary. The issue with a lot of these effigies replacing into emissaries is that they have to be within engagement range of the enemy model that they hit the attack with. But since Whizbang gives him fast cast, it increases that threat range substantially. So play 1 is Here Comes the Boom. Now for this, we are going to be playing an informant strategy against the Pandora crew from the last video. I placed my informant's marker on the left side, Pandora's placed it on the right. And given this a big tempo in the middle, we probably won't be engaging as much as usual. So deployment considerations. We really want to put a pyrotechnic marker down and then trigger its end of the turn effect to give out Glowy to all the models that need it. So the Bokur needs it, and then anyone who's going to be forward with Wong is going to want Glowy so that Wong can strip it off. And then, Alphonse wants it as well so that he can get the 3rd action. Now, any model with Glowy is fine because Wong will want to strip it all off for his finale actions, but we're going to keep our Fireflies away from the Glowy markers in case we cannot remove the pyrotechnic marker by the end phase, and for some reason Boom, and when Boom goes off, we don't want it blowing up on the little lightning bugs. So with my first activation, one of my Bokurs is going to put down a pyrotechnic marker using their stage prep action. You could spend a stone right now if you wanted to go ahead and pop off, if you want to give that Bokur the Glowy. In this situation, I don't think the engagement's going to happen that much, so I don't opt to spin the stone there. I just sort of move the Bokur forward to a position where it can get thrown by the Pigapult if something walks into this sort of firing lane down the left side. And with my next activation, I'm going to go with a lightning bug and trigger that pyrotechnic marker. They get the plus flip on their action tampering, and hopefully they can find either a mask or a tome the mask gives glowy or the tome gives insight. If you don't have any masks or tomes in hand, you may not want to do this, but that's a little more unlikely. You really don't want to trigger boom right now because you'd be blowing on your own stuff. But typically you'll be able to get at least one of the tokens, if not both, out on most of the fighting models. In this situation, I get off glowy, and then I get insight on all of the models in my little bubble here. That's the Beaucours, Wong, Alphonse, the Pigapult, and Olivia. If I need a second lightning bug activation to get this off, that's perfectly fine. And with my third lightning bug activation, I'm going to start dropping scheme markers in my deployment zone, because Reshape the Land then goes to Breakthrough. So this turn, we're going to drop 5 pyrotechnic markers on the enemy table half, and then turn 2, we're already going to have scheme markers down to score Breakthrough. Olivia is going to go, she's going to walk forward, she's going to make a pyrotechnic markers with the crew card action, inspect the stage. Since she's a unique model, she can place a pyrotechnic marker within 6. And then the remaining Beaucours activations, they're going to walk forward and contest the strategy markers where relevant and use their actions to put down pyrotechnic markers on the enemy table half. We're going to basically save our last activations for Wong, Alphonse, and Pigapult. Whenever the model feels like it, the effigy can go and give impact markers to, or impact tokens to Wong and the Pigapult. Impact is huge with Wong. It changes the math on him being able to two-shot certain models with Finale. You know, if you got a crit strike trigger, you got enough glowy to strip off, you can do a 7 damage Finale cast. Now we're getting near the end of the turn. Pandora has not pushed in super hard, just sort of contesting the strategy markers that they can. We're down to sort of our last 2 activations for both sides. At this point, Pandora can pull a trigger of sorts. She scales the temple, and she casts Self-Loathing on the Pigapult, which allows her to take the damage of the Pigapult's attack, in this case just 2 from the actual value on the Pigapult, but the stone trigger on her Self-Loathing allows her to take an attack action from the Pigapult. So the Pigapult elects to pick up the Beaucours and fling it at Olivia, doing a mess of damage. But because the Beaucours was damaged by a friendly model, this can trigger proper motivation, allowing the Beaucours to make a once per turn 4-inch move and then drop a scheme marker. So luckily for us, we got our scheme marker on the center of the board now for our breakthrough on turn 2. Unlucky for us, we've been slinging some goblins at each other and doing a bunch of damage. Pandora just has Carver left. We have Alphonse and Wong. Alphonse is going to make a toss action onto Wong, slinging him 10 inches directly up the board. And because he has the glowy token, he could toss something else if he wants to maybe position something that could threaten the right flank, something like that. But one thing I found with my first few games with Wong is to not have Alphonse just be on toss duty turn 1. He loses so much value if he is that far behind positionally. On turn 2, you want him to be in the pocket. So I'm just going to advance him forward. And now you can see this sort of formation that is what we really want with this play, which is Wong is leading the charge. There's pyrotechnic markers all over the enemy table half in relevant places. And if Carver goes into Wong, he can use his exit stage and then pop back into the pocket. And this pocket is great for us because we got Alphonse, who could be our support. But we also got a lot of friendly models we could throw glowy on, especially with the lightning bugs, and drop some big finales. It can be easy to toss Wong up the board and then, get too far forward. And then you find yourself in a situation where you're having to make too many actions just to drop pyrotechnic markers and get out glowy with his Fizap action. So now, unfortunately, Carver has insane threat range with his Smashing Pumpkins action. So he's able to get a bead on Olivia, who's already taken damage from the Pigapult, throw the pumpkin, teleport to her, and actually spikes a little bit and kills her turn 1. So Carver spikes up and he kills Olivia, but spent a lot of cards doing so. And since Wong is sitting here in this pocket, he can throw out a couple finales on Carver and take the glowy off of our friendly models and ends up doing 11 damage to Carver with 2 finales. No crit strikes, but just impact and plus 5 damage each time. That leaves Carver on 2 health going into turn 2, where we're already set up to finish him as soon as we get an activation, but we're set up where a Beaucours can be flung into something like the Poltergeist down the board, and It can push 4 and drop a ski marker into the enemy deployment zone, scoring us breakthrough. We scored reshift to land turn 1. And we got all these pyro markers near the enemy models where they need to stand to be relevant on strategy. Now, currently, the wording of Boom is such that models standing within 2 of 1 or more pyrotechnic markers must take the duel or be dealt 2 damage. Now, maybe this gets errated in the future, or maybe it's aesthetic because it sort of represents, setting off one firecracker and everyone on the board blows. But the lightning bugs can use their tampering action on a pyrotechnic marker that we have placed back in our deployment zone, so they can each fish for rams twice on the marker. And every time they get a ram, they blow up all the pyrotechnic markers. In this situation, hitting the Alyce, hitting the Poltergeist, hitting Carver, hitting the Emissary, hitting Pandora. And if we get the right flips, we may end up just pumping out insane amounts of damage. Now, in some matchups, this is really good, especially if they don't have things like armor or incorporeal. Incorporeal is I feel like it's one of the worst defensive techs in most situations. But against the exploding pyrotechnic markers, it's pretty insane because they take the duel. If they lose it, they only take 1 damage. But in certain matchups, like the next one we're going to do, Shenlong, where they don't have things like armor, incorporeal, those defensive techs that are not very good against dedicated beaters in the game right now, but are really good against volume of fire. Play 2 is the Pigapult Bubble. Now with this, we're going to go way more elite. We're bringing 2 Swine Curse, the Pigapult, Hopscotch, Alphonse, and Hoochdini. Now the Pigapult and the Swine Curse have a pretty insane synergy. The Pigapult picks them up, throws them, does a bunch of damage, considering it's a ruthless gun that has crit strike and an additional damage when you're throwing a minion. But the Swine Curse have an ability called Who Hit Me. Once per activation, when they suffer damage from a friendly action, they can make a melee attack. So the Pigapult picks them up, throws them, and then they get a free swing when they land, and then they still get an activation afterwards. And considering their melee action is a signature action, they can hit 3 times. So with this play, we're going to just sort of march straight down the middle. We're going to present this Pigapult combo. And if the opponent sort of limps into it, it's kind of just a win big, lose big situation. With the Pigapult and the Swine Curse, I found that when it goes off, it's fantastic. It's insane. But you can also spend like 2 turns trying to wiggle around and get in the right spot. And maybe you only throw 1 and you threw it too early and then it died to just a beater and didn't do that much. But when you really get in there, you do a lot of damage and you just take space. It's devastating. And we're going to lean into it even harder because we're bringing an elite crew to back it up so that if they do go into the Pigapult and try to keep it from shooting or something like that, we got our beaters to support. Hopscotch can just pick him up with his tongue and put him base to base with him. Alphonse can toss people or just beat them. And Hoochdini is a great little healer sort of support model. Now, with this play, we're going to mainly lean on Wong's signature action, Clear the Stage. This lets him target a friendly model, and then allies within 2 of the target can move up to 3 inches. So we're making this bubble, and we're going to cast Clear the Stage on a model. Every other model than the model it was casted on that's within 2 gets to then make a 3-inch move. I found the best way to do this bubble is to have 2 30mm models who are going to take turns getting this action casted on them. It can be really tricky with the 50 mils because they can't move through friendly models with just a 3-inch move very cleanly in a way, so you might disrupt your bubble pretty early. So basically, we're just going to cast Fazap. We're going to put a marker down. We're going to trigger its end of turn effects so that we can put Glowy on every model in the bubble. Then we're going to cast Clear the Stage 3 times. The first time Wong casts it on himself. Olivia moves in front of Wong. Everybody else moves as far forward as they can. We're prioritizing the Pigapult, getting as much range as it can. Next time he'll cast it on Olivia. And then the last time he'll cast it back on himself. Making sure we put Olivia within 2 of the strategy marker. We've now taken the center board and we're presenting this big bubble. So after you do this, your opponent will probably move in such a way that they're not going to present you with easy shots. So your chaff activations can probably start with Hoochdini, who's going to just put a pyrotechnic marker into your crew so that you can trigger a mask at the end of the turn and give everybody the glowy that they need. The Swine Curse with glowy are great. Without a glowy, they feel awful. So you really want to set up your turn such that the Swine Curse, they get activations, they get damage, but at the end of the game, or at the end of the turn, you're going to refresh their glowy with a pyrotechnic marker that you have on your own models. So we're really trying not to boom this play. The Pigapult can swing, throw its Ruthless Gun, just sort of pop Alyce, get the Swine Cursed out. Carver may go in if he's feeling squirrely, but we got big beaters to support him. Sometimes when you do this play, you may even want to not sling the Swine Cursed because your defensive formation is just so strong. You have Warning Growl off all fawns, so none of the friendly models within 2 can get additional damage or can receive additional damage from enemy raises. You have Olivia giving +1 to all defense and willpower for everything in the bubble. You have Hoochdini healing. Like, if you can position in such a way that your bubble completely takes over the most scoring relevant position on the board while the Swine Curse are just off killing scheme markers or scheme runners, this play can be devastating. Now, play 3 is the flank and fast cast. Now, I really love the minigame of trying to get the correct card on the discard at the end of the turn, but it can be tilting. You may position your whole turn around something, and then, your opponent gets last activation, and they do their 2 actions, but they still have a signature, and you're like, okay, now what? Can you make me flip another card? Are you sure? That kind of type of minigame can be frustrating. So this third play is basically not relying on pyrotechnic markers at all. And it's a particularly good play if we have to spread out. With Wong's finale and his need to have all the models with Glowy, and with Alphonse's Warning Growl, with the Beaucourt's ability to steal like melee actions with their casts. The whole crew seems like it wants to bubble up, but some scenarios and strategies just won't let you do that. So we're reverting back to our first play, with one exception. We're dropping the Pigapult because that's sort of a synergy ball in its own right, and we're adding Hopscotch, who can leap and go off and beat stuff all on his own. Now, both the Pigapult and Hoochdini have abilities to discard cards in the end phase, so they are really essential to maintaining that sort of pyrotechnic effect that you really want. But with this play, we're disregarding that component as much as we can. Obviously, we're going to put pyrotechnic markers down when we need them or when they're free, but we're not going to build a macro strategy around where our pyrotechnic markers are going. So we got 2 bubbles, one around Alphonse and one around Wong. So our purpose of play 3 is to really leverage our card efficiency. Now, the Beaucourts have plus flips on their casts. The Lightning Bugs have plus flips on their casts. Alphonse has plus flips on his. Wong can look at a card and discard it at the beginning and end of his activation, as can every single Lightning Bug. So you have an insane amount of deck efficiency. It's completely common in this play to go through the entire deck, which is not very common in 4th edition. So in turn 1, we're going to position all of our models in a way that they can charge and sling a spell at relevant positions on the board, but we're not leaning into any one flank. Turn 1, we're going to get all of our as many strategy markers down as we can, so that turn 2, we're just making these plus flips attacks. And we're going to just hit them with a volume of sort of slap punches. So Alphonse is going to fling a Beaucourt, who's going to drop a strategy marker and walk forward so that he can be in a position to charge anywhere into this middle of the board. The Beaucourts and the Lightning Bugs are going to move into position. Now I'm taking care to make sure I'm positioning my minions in a way that they can charge on turn 2. So it may be safer to position right up against this box, for example, but I'm backing up to the 2 inches, so I still get the benefit of cover, obviously, but can charge at various angles, because every little attack is going to matter going into turn 2. So Alphonse flings on one flank, but Wong is going to position his entire flank with exit stage, and I'm going to cast on one of the 30mm models so that it's the one staying back. Everyone else can sort of group up around them, and then we can exit stage like 3 times, drop some glowy with Fazap if we need, and just sort of get as many models as we can in a position to drop their strategy marker. At the end of turn 1, Hopscotch actually, so Pandora has last activation, so second to last activation, Hopscotch leaps up, drops its strategy marker, which lets Carver come into him and do a decent chunk of damage. But we're in a position where going into turn 2, all of our relevant models can just start slinging low-value spells into Carver and getting him with that volume of fire. Pandora may take an attrition lead on us this turn, but the weight of our card efficiency and the fact that we can score points anywhere on the board is eventually going to add up to giving us the victory. Now, if it's unclear, I think this may be my favorite master I've played in 4th edition so far. Engaging with all these little mini games is so much fun, and it's not fun in a way that, like, it's always awkward playing the comic relief in a tabletop board game or a video game or anything, because developers will often just be like, oh, because they're silly, there's some random stuff. You know, like think about like orcs or something in 40K. It's like all of my stuff is the same. It's just sometimes when I roll ones, my head explodes or something like that, you know? This crew really feels like you don't have to punish yourself by engaging with the silly mechanics, but if you feel like taking the risk, you can be rewarded. Now, the perfect situation for this that came up in my last game. So I have the Lucky Effigy going as the last activation because, you know, it was sort of just slap fight. All I have left in my hand is a 6 of Tomes. And I'm saving that 6 of Tomes because that's the only card I got to ensure that Boom will not go off. Sorry, pyrotechnic markers are all over my Beaucours and like Alphonse. So I really don't want Boom to go off, so I'm saving a Tome. It's a 6 of Tomes. The Effigy goes, Walk charges into a model. I flip a 2. That model flips a 4. And 6 is the exact card I'd had in my hand that would connect that effect. So I elect to cheat that 6, spin the 2 stones, grow up into the steamroller. It can now then take its signature action to steamroll, picking up 2 scheme markers, completely turning off my enemy's scheme, except I didn't have a card in my hand. So when I go to take the steamroller action, I just fell the TN. And then last card of the deck is the Rams, and Boom blows up on all my bottles. So I could have just took the safe play. I could have held the Tome. I could have held the Effigy back another turn. I could have just had him give an impact token to a model and keep it relevant. But I elected to go for the risky play, and it blew up in my face, literally. So that's it. That's 3 plays for Wong the Wonderful. If you have any tips, tricks, or tactics for beating Wong, please leave them down in the comments. Do all that YouTube stuff, like, subscribe, blah, blah, blah. If you want to see the videos a week early, please join my Patreon. The next video is Shenlong. It's going to be Shenlong versus Wong on his temple board that I've been working on for a bit. And then I'm still debating like 2 or 3 models or 2 or 3 masters to cover in the Wave 2. I'm pretty settled on like an English Ivan, Perdita, the Silken King. I just picked up that starter set. And then I think Vix, but Resurrectionist, 10 Thunders, Arcanist, I'm still debating. For 10 Thunders and Resers, I got to buy stuff, but for Arcanist, I have a bunch of stuff. I'm just deciding which one I want to do. So if you have any suggestions or anything you really want to see, please join the Discord down in the description. And also help me, you know, I'm going to be running rules by the Discord to make sure I get things right. So join that if you want to help me improve these. Thank you.